What is up, Buckeyes? This is the Carmen, Ohio Buckeye, and I'm here to discuss everything related to Buckeye football. It's also basketball season. I know that that's not as popular as football season for us. Our basketball team has a 2-1 record so far, so we'll see how that goes. But right now, what we are most excited about is getting this next game over with so that we can face off against our bitter and hated rivals. What is everybody thinking? How's everybody feeling about the game? It seems like all of the media is assuming that we're going to lose to Michigan for some reason. And I don't get it. Just because of the last two seasons does not mean we're going to lose this season. And I don't know about everyone else, but I'm feeling kind of confident. But first, I wanted to discuss something. I've actually kind of avoided this topic in my previous recordings. However, it is a very important thing to discuss, and everybody else is discussing it. And so let's get this thing out of the way. We're going to talk about the Michigan scandal that's dominating the news. Now, I've been just kind of waiting to hear how everything kind of falls, how everything settles. Not that everything has settled because we still get new information every day, but it seems like we've reached at least a plateau that might lead to another peak. So this all started at the beginning of the season, to be honest. So, a lot of people wanted to report that Ohio State turned in Michigan. That is a false narrative. That is incorrect. Ohio State had nothing to do with Michigan getting in trouble. Ryan Day was not involved. The story about his brother, Chris Day, is a fake story, even though he is involved in a government agency. He has nothing to do with any of this. So I want to get that out of the way. That is actually inaccurate. And if you hear anyone say that or try to associate Ohio State with this, that is incorrect. Ohio State had nothing to do. How did Michigan really get turned in? That's the big thing. At the very beginning of the season, there was an NCAA investigation into Michigan's recruiting violations. During the 2020 year, let's see, I can't use that certain word related to 2020, so I'm just going to call it C19. C19, when that was going on, we weren't allowed to recruit during certain seasons. There was a restriction, and there was no in-person recruiting. So Harbaugh went ahead and said, I don't care. Forget about the rules. I do what I want. I'm Jim Harbaugh. I'm above the rules. So he brought the recruits. He bought them cheeseburgers and stuff like that. Cheeseburgers is just one example. So, during that whole situation, the NCAA was like, we're looking into this. We're thinking about some suspensions. And so what Jim Harbaugh did during an interview, he said, they're trying to suspend me over some cheeseburgers. So they told a lie on what the NCAA was looking into. They were actually recruiting violations. The people weren't allowed to be there. He was giving himself an unfair advantage by recruiting when he wasn't allowed to. And so the NCAA said, you know what? We're going to negotiate a suspension with you because you lied. So the NCAA gets really mad when you lie to them. So Jim Harbaugh's like, well, how about we suspend for 4 games? And so the NCAA said, no, that's not good enough. And then they said, you know what? We'll continue this after the season. Okay, so what does Michigan do? They give themselves a self-suspension. I don't know if that's the right term, but Jim Harbaugh was self-suspended for 3 games, some of the easiest games you could be suspended for. So that was the beginning of the season. So what happened was, because the NCAA was recruiting these low-level violations and they were already on campus, all of a sudden they found other things going on. So what's the other thing that's really big going on? Besides the most obvious one that's being reported, most people aren't talking about. Matt Weiss was fired earlier this season. I believe he was an offensive coach. I do apologize, I don't have all the details. But he was fired for what they said was internet crimes across state lines. Let's say this one more time. Internet crimes across state lines. Matt Weiss was fired for that. Now, what's happened recently was that U.S. Integrity has gotten involved along with the FBI involved in whatever this internet crime is. People have had their opinions on what they think it is. U.S. Integrity tends to be involved with betting schemes. I don't know that for sure, but that kind of is what it indicates. So it could be that. It could just be like the word integrity, so something else was going on. But whatever it is, Matt Weiss was fired. And it seems that during this, cycle of investigating the internet crimes at the beginning of the year, they also found, now this is alleged, I can't prove this, but it's been reported by several reputable agencies, 50 hours of Ohio State practice film. 50 hours during the summer. Now, let me put it this way. Ohio State does not allow even the top beat writers access to this film, but somehow Michigan had it. You think they're going to hand that over to their bitter rival? I don't think so. So they're investigating that, and they turned that over to the NCAA. The NCAA gets involved. So basically, Michigan self-reported because they had to. Their hand was forced. Okay? So in addition to this, this led to what, has caused the internet and the news storm right now. In addition to this, a low-level staffer was caught aiming to commit a crime that he was set up for. Now, I'm not going to discuss what that is. You can look it up. His name is Yude. All that information's out there. But he got fired for aiming to commit a serious crime. And so he gets fired. So that's another investigation going on. But that's more into him than it is the university. I will say, before I end that part of it, the university did what was right, and they fired him immediately. So in this particular case by itself, Michigan did the right thing. But, still, this is all like adding up to a firestorm. You hear me? So then, when they found the 50 hours of practice for him, they found a huge advanced scouting ring. Now, regardless how you feel about advanced scouting, it's an unfair advantage to advance scout an opponent if no one else is doing it. The NCAA thought about allowing it in the 90s, in the early 90s, and they decided that many universities couldn't afford to do it. Okay? So what they said was it's illegal. So what Michigan had someone doing, they had a staffer who started off low level and then in 2 seasons became a paid coach, basically. But at first, he's a low-level staffer, and he's on the sidelines talking to coaches. Now, there's video evidence of what I'm saying. I will say everything I'm saying is alleged, but there's a lot of fire along with the smoke. But he's on the sidelines talking to these assistants. You have video evidence of this. You see him putting his hands in the air, giving signs, and then you see the defense making changes and going right to where the play was going. So Connor Stallions formed this whole network, and they said about approximately 65 people. He was paying them by Venmo to get tickets to games to future opponents. They were scheduled to go to at least 8 games for Ohio State this season. I don't know the number of games for other teams. I do know, however, that the Penn State game, the scandal already broke out, and the 2 seats that they bought were empty. Okay? So in addition to having the 65 people going to games, he also was seen on the sidelines of Central Michigan game versus Michigan State. Now, there's no doubt nobody expected Central Michigan to beat Michigan State. Come on. So why was he on those sidelines? Okay. Now, the coaches refused to answer who that is, but the video evidence shows it's the same person. And this isn't alleged. It hasn't been denied by anyone. Central Michigan has hushed themselves. Likely they were interviewed and gave some details about what's going on with the advanced scouting. And, so when you add all of this together, you say, well, what does this lead to? Well, right after you find out about all of this information, the advanced scouting being on different sidelines, Connor Stallions was fired. Okay, so they fired him. And then immediately, a lot of beat writers for Michigan and media were getting details from these people that, oh, Harbaugh's not involved. He didn't know, blah, 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 blah. And there was all kinds of false articles being written with false information. They started blaming Ohio State. They tried to distract everybody from the real problem. Okay, but when they were fired, they tried to make him look like the lone gunman. That's what they tried to make him look like, which he was not. Okay, he was paid on staff. Okay, but as they looked into this, they found out that he started a vacuum cleaner business with Blake Corum. Now, with NIL deals and the new rules in college football, I don't know that that's necessarily illegal anymore, but it's weird because players and coaches shouldn't be forming businesses together. It's a very gray area, so I don't know if that's legal or illegal, but it just kind of adds to the drama of the situation. Was money being funneled through that vacuum cleaner business right back into the program to do this whole scheme? I don't know. I mean, we're still waiting to find out information. Okay, but it turns out that after all of this information was released, linebacker coach Chris Partridge went in and tried to destroy evidence of the computers so that they could not be found. And he was caught. So Chris Partridge, as of today, was fired as linebacker coach. And so Rick Minter was now named to linebacker coach. He's the father of defensive coach Jesse Minter. So he'll be filling in as linebacker coach. Okay, all of this led to a huge firestorm of drama. And then the Big Ten said, you know what, 13 schools, there's 14 schools in the Big Ten. So everybody was complaining to the Big Ten, you need to act now. You need to stop this. This is horrible. My players, safety I'm worried about. And so, they met with the Big Ten. There were meetings. The Big Ten, Patini, he met with the council that you have to meet with to get permission because he wanted to suspend for more than the 2 games that's allowed. They gave him permission. He said, you're suspended. Now, this is the wild thing. This also adds to the drama. Right before Michigan's about to get on a plane, Rick Pitini's, having his meetings. And then, so they get on the plane. They're on their way to Pennsylvania to play Penn State. And all of a sudden, this was last Friday, Pitini says Harbaugh suspended 3 games. So they land in Michigan, and, of course, they're releasing to the beat writers, we're going to fight this. We're going to show the Big Ten we have great lawyers. Pitini's from Harvard. You think he's scared? He's not scared. Give me a break. He knows what he's doing. He knows the bylaws. He can only punish the universities. The NCAA can punish the coaches themselves. So what he did was he suspended Harbaugh for 3 games based on the university's violations. And so they said they're going to fight it. They filed for an injunction. The judge said that they can't authorize the injunction. They need to have a hearing. They set it for today originally. Okay, so he couldn't coach last week's game. So then in the midst of all this firestorm, Michigan wins the game against Penn State. Penn State's offense couldn't get it done. And all of a sudden, Coach Moore comes out and he starts crying. And of course, everybody's like, what are you doing? Like, this is a bad look. It's such a bad look. He's crying. Why is he crying? He's crying because they're caught. He's not crying because, he's upset about what they're doing to Jim Harbaugh. No, he's crying because they got caught. Okay? And then this week, Jim Harbaugh has an interview, and he says, we're America's team. Okay, so first off, they're trying to say it's Michigan versus the world. Now they're saying they're America's team. These people can't make up their minds, okay? Okay, so anyways, they're going to have the hearing today originally, but the Big Ten presented their evidence. They were interviewing players all week. They came to Harbaugh and the AD and, whatever staff involved with their evidence. And Jim Harbaugh immediately said, okay, we'll accept the suspension. So there goes all that. We're going to fight it. We're going to show this university, blah, 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 blah. So now Jim Harbaugh suspended. We won't be seeing him on the sidelines for the rest of the regular season. That's the key word. Any postseason games he will be coaching. So the question is, could we be potentially be seeing his last few games of coaching, or last game if Ohio State beats Michigan, which I believe that they will? He will only have the bowl game to coach in, and that's it. It could be his last time coaching. This staff and probably a lot of coordinators are going to be mixed into this. And the question is, will games be vacated? Will there be show cause penalties where they can't be hired? The NFL is going to also support any decisions made. So the NFL is going to be like, sorry, we're not hiring you till the show cause is over with. Or, maybe they'll offer a lower tier job. But regardless, it's a huge, huge demotion if they do take a lower tier job. But I'm thinking the NFL won't take them. No other universities are going to take them. These people, this is going to cost them quite a bit. Um, you know, and of course, Michigan, since then or this past week has been threatening to leave the Big Ten with all the TV contracts lasting until sometime into 2030. They would have to pay out those contracts, and that would be a huge sum of money. So ultimately, I think it's going to wind up that the university says, you know what, we're cutting our losses. Bye, Jim Harbaugh, because at the end of the day, they're all about the university. They're not about Jim Harbaugh. So, anyways, that's all I wanted to say about that. It's a very huge story. But how that applies to Ohio State, I don't know. We'll see what happens on November 25th. But of course, we have a game in between coming up. Sure, Minnesota is 5-5, so they're exactly 500. They're unlikely to win the Big Ten West. They're right now third in the conference, which is tells you all you need to know about the West. But last week against Michigan State, we came out in a big way. Uh, you know, uh, when you think of C.J. Stroud, you think of 300-plus-yard games. And a lot has been thrown towards Kyle McCord this year. Like, they think that he's underperformed, but Kyle McCord was 24 for 31, 335 yards, 3 touchdowns. Absolutely his best game of the season. Regardless of what opponent it is, what he was doing is he was making quick decisions. He was distributing the ball around. He wasn't just throwing it to Marvin Harrison Jr. Okay, and that's the big thing. The other big thing is we made a change to where Matt Jones, who I would say is probably our best lineman, we moved him to center and we put Carson Hintzman on the bench. So we're kind of playing around with that. I think that's a good choice right now, considering the size of Michigan's front line in a few weeks. So we're playing around with some lineups. You don't necessarily want to be doing that at the end of the season, but we've got several players like Enoch and Fryer, I think his name is. We got several players with experience that they can move around. So that I talked about that actually on my first video that I did. But anyways, Marvin Harrison now has, I believe, 7 games with over 100 yards this season. He had 7 receptions for 149 yards and 3 touchdowns. So all of his touchdowns were passing, or he had 2 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown. And then Stover had the other passing touchdown. He received the touchdown. You get what I mean. But we held Nathan Carter to 52 yards rushing, and we held Hauser, their quarterback, to 92 yards passing. Our defense absolutely killed it, and we beat them 38-3. But that doesn't tell the full story. You see, Michigan State was down 35-3 at half. Ohio State packed it in. They decided not to fully embarrass the team. They already did what they needed to. They knew they already won the game. Michigan State couldn't do anything on our defense. So we packed it in. We did move the ball a little bit in the second half, and we got to see some of our future players. Jelani Thurman looks like an absolute beast. We got to see Lincoln Kienholz play. That was great to see. We went into depth in our running backs. It was good to see Pryor get a few snaps. I don't think we put in Dallin Hayden. We're still trying to keep him just in case so we don't burn his red shirt. I think he has 2 more games of availability, if I remember correctly. It may only be 1 more, though. But, anyways, Trey Henderson looked absolutely amazing this past week. He only had 60 something yards, but you don't want to just look at the yards because Trey Henderson was taken out of the game kind of early. We started using Chip Trey in him. So, as far as the yards per carry go, because I think he only had, 11 carries. So he's doing quite well. And we, as far as passing, outpassed Michigan State 353 to 88. We outrushed Michigan State 177 to 94. Basically, Ohio State's peaking at the right time. And, even though the opponent wasn't good, you got to think about some, the fact that even doing some of the things we did with our passes on air is very tough. Like Kyle McCord threw some darts. That pass to Cade Stover, there were some of the passes to Marvin Harrison Jr. He zipped those in there, accurate, just like C.J. Stroud would have done. So Kyle McCord is getting better. A lot of people wanted him benched. A lot of people were calling for Devin Brown. At this point, we gotta trust that our coaching staff knows what they're doing. Ryan Day has been known as a quarterback whisperer for years. So Ohio State 10-0. We whooped up on Michigan State. We could have named our score. We could have scored 80 points if we wanted to. We decided not to, and I respect that. We lost our number 1 ranking in the college football playoff polls. That's not a big deal. And face it, how many games in a row has Georgia won? Since their loss to Alabama before their first national championship, they haven't lost a game. So fine, put them at number 1. Ohio State needs to prove that they can play with the big boys. And so that's fine with me. And I think Michigan would feel the same about Georgia being 1. Let us prove that we can win. Michigan's probably saying the same thing. Let us prove that we can win. That's perfectly fine. None of us are mad about that. Okay, so coming into this game against Minnesota, Minnesota's 5-5. They are fighting for bowl eligibility. They'll only get 2 more tries. They're playing us, and then they play Wisconsin to end the season. I think that's their rivalry, if I remember correctly. But Ohio State right now is averaging 33.3 points per game. Now, that is down about a touchdown or maybe like 9 points from what it's been under Ryan Day. But you know why that's okay? We're allowing 10 points per game on defense. Nobody, and I repeat, nobody has scored 20 points on us this year. And the highest that we've given up is 17. Minnesota is averaging 22.5 points per game. Their passing and their running game is kind of balanced, but not great. They're averaging 168.9 passing yards, so they're not a strong passing team. Whereas Ohio State's averaging 301.3 passing yards. Now, they are out-rushing us by average. They are averaging 160.4. That looks like a strength compared to ours, but I would take that with a grain of salt. We're averaging 138.6. They're giving up 25.8 points per game, and we're, of course, giving up 9.9. Like I said, just about 10. They're giving up 240.8 passing yards per game. We're averaging 163.1. And they're averaging 137.4 rushing yards per game, and we're giving up about 112.4. So we're not really allowing teams to beat us in the rushing game. Their top passer, Ethan Kalakmanis, has 1,582 passing yards all season. McCord has 2,687. Their top rusher, Darius Taylor, has 591 yards. Trevion Henderson has 648. But as you know, we've filtered in 4 running backs throughout the season. So, those running backs also have stats. Marvin Harrison Jr. is our top receiver with 1,063 yards. Their top receiver is Daniel Jackson, 681. And based on how he performs in this game, he could be pretty close to where he ended last season. So he has a chance to break his records out of the water this year. Their top touchdowns is their quarterback, 15 touchdowns. McCord has 20. Maverick Baranowski has 51 tackles. Tommy Eichenberg has 72. Those are the top. Danny Strigo has 6 sacks. JT, I'm just going to call him JT. I can't pronounce his name. 4 sacks. And kick points doesn't really matter too much. Dragon Keswick, 85. Jada Fielding, 75. So, I mean, really, we own most of the advantage. I wanted to put an asterisk next to rush yards. Now, when we were starting this season, we were trying to do more complicated run plays. And I don't understand what the point of it was. I do know that Travion Henderson can outrun some players. But when you're running your running back and there's unblocked players, it's a loser play, as Kirk Barton calls it. And we were doing that a lot to start the season. Also, we tried to run in a phone booth where everybody's in the middle of the field a lot at the beginning of the year. So we changed our run blocking scheme, and it has completely changed our offense all the way around. That takes so much pressure off of Kyle McCord. So even though our rushing yard total is down, I like where we are right now because our offensive line is way better than it was at the beginning of the year. See, here's the thing. This team every week has been growing to tremendous heights. And they haven't stopped growing. Like, nothing had arrived at the beginning of the year. I would say our defense was good out the gate, but even it has learned some things throughout the season. So we've been improving each game, and we've been getting better and better and better and better. Kyle McCord's getting better. And when I see that, I say, this is something to take note of. Teams that get better late in the season tend to do better in the postseason. So that's what I'd like seeing from the Buckeyes this year. Hey, look, Kyle McCord, everybody was on his case. But I do want to make this point. Right now, McCord has 2,687 yards. After this game, in all likelihood, he'll be at 3,000. In 2022, Stroud was at 3,047 yards. So he had about 300 more yards. That might be one game's worth. But, considering, Kyle McCord, it's his first season. He didn't play bad defenses at the beginning of the year as much as Stroud did. Like, Oregon is a good offensive team, terrible defensive team. So 500 yards in 2021 was just Oregon alone. So, like, his stats he doesn't have as many touchdown passes, but, 2687 is pretty good. We've been a pretty balanced team towards the end of the season. 2021, Stroud had 3,056. So, yeah, he's not quite at Stroud's level, but he's serviceable and he's doing just fine. And he's the top quarterback in the Big Ten. With all that's said and done, even as shaky as we started out on offense, that's pretty good. I have full confidence that our defense will hold this team under 10 as well. They're not a very strong offense. They're not really that good. They're 5-5 at 500. This does not look like the kind of game that you would call a trap game, as long as we just, do our thing. So, I feel pretty good about this game. Most of us want to get this out of the way to get to rivalry week. But I think Ohio State will have a very similar game to last week. In the 35 to 40 range against Minnesota. We'll probably pack it in at halftime again. Hopefully we can get Brown on the field this week if he's healthy. If not, I would love to see Kienholz again. Kienholz is really fast. The other thing I would like to see for this game is to see McCord get on the same page with Carnell Tate a little bit more. Carnell Tate is fast. He's lightning quick. The dude can run. He catches the ball and a tackle is missed, he is gone. If we could use him more, he could be a huge weapon against Michigan. And who knows, maybe like Chris Olave, that's his breakout game, and all of a sudden we're like, whoa, we have another guy like Harrison. So that's what I'm hoping to see. Guys, if any of you have score predictions or anything you want to say, feel free to comment on my videos. I'm not a big YouTube channel or anything, but I'm just doing this for fun anyways. Please like, share, subscribe, interact with me. I like that kind of stuff. If you're a fan of another team, feel free to leave a comment too. I welcome all teams, but I am an Ohio State fan, so that's what I'm posting as. But I would love to hear from other people. Michigan fans, talk your trash. Fine. I enjoy it. That's what I enjoy doing. Just remember, I'm going to talk trash back, okay? But the deal is it's just for fun. We're not attacking each other, just each other's teams. All right, everybody. I just want to say go Buckeyes, get the W, and let's get to 12-0 this year. Thank you. Have a great day.